That was Floating Still by Circus Trees. I'm Dakota Antleman, and this is 3 Pounds of Pure Culture, the podcast where I take you in-depth into local and hyper-local music that gets its life in the smallest of venues from here to Boston. We've been bouncing around Boston and Worcester for a couple episodes now, but this time we are staying true to the hyper-local aspect of that slogan. Indeed, we're going just across town to the city of Marlborough, the home base of a teenage shoegaze trio that has spent the past year shredding through a central mass scene that has seemed primed to gobble their music up at a breakneck pace, at times faster than they can put it out. Joining me in breaking them down, it's going to be once again, this time in the studio, Clement Doucette. Clem, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
So Circus Trees, definitely a fascinating band there, and one that I've had my eyes on for a couple months now. I caught them back at a show when we were reporting on our Planet Mercury episode a few months ago now. But they're, as I said, they're a teenage shoegaze trio formed of 3 sisters from Marlborough. Their members are Juliana, Finola, and Edme. Their oldest, Juliana, is a senior in high school, 17 years old, and plays drums. Their lead vocalist and lead songwriter, Finola, is 14, and the youngest, bassist and keyboardist, Edme, is just 13 years old. She's still in middle school. Despite their age, though, this band has already recorded 2 singles and an EP that they will be releasing soon. Their singles are entitled Impermanence and Floating Still, and we are yet to get a title as far as when we recorded this on what that EP is going to be called, but we do know it's going to be coming out soon. They've attracted attention from numerous music publications, particularly some acclaimed publications in Boston, which gave them a lot of press in April around their most recent release. They also most recently earned a Music Video of the Year nomination from the HUD-TV music show WooTube. I don't believe they won that Music Video of the Year award, but were definitely the youngest band nominated in that category. We'll be sitting down with them face-to-face in just a moment to talk a little bit more about their origin story, talk about their sound, talk about their music in general. But first, Clem, when you took a look at this band, I sent you some links to them.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions on them?
Well, I definitely liked their sound and sort of the depth and rawness of the lyrics. I could definitely feel the emotion coming through in these songs that I heard. I also appreciated the length of the songs because I like longer songs, but usually it's hard to make a longer song without it becoming directionless or listless, and I think they succeeded in sustaining the energy throughout the songs.
Yeah, that's definitely something we talk about. Again, stay tuned for that interview with these band members, because we touch on the length, we touch on sort of the composition of those songs and how they structure these 6, 7, 8 minute long songs. To really kind of ebb and flow, but in a creative and a captivating sort of way. As far as my first impressions, these guys are really just a fierce trio, a force to be reckoned with. I'm someone who doesn't, or who does listen to kind of my fair share of slowcore and shoegaze. With even some of my favorite bands or in these genres, I wouldn't necessarily say the guitarists shred or drummers smash on their drums. But those are exactly the verbs to use for Circus Trees. They are playing aggressive music in a genre that is, often very laid back and often allows some bands to kind of sink into a very subdued, sometimes lacking, of energy kind of presence. But Circus Trees is just forceful and, energetic, and it's really captivating when you see them live, when you see videos of them, even when you hear their songs. It comes through on, the radio. When these 3 hit the stage right away, there's Juliana, the drummer. She's hammering those drums with some sort of fantastic awareness, not just of the drums, but as the cymbals accenting it. She brings those into her beats, as well as accents, and also bringing in the ride cymbals a lot to kind of structure her beats and be sort of foundational. Then you get Edme up front. She's the youngest musician on that stage. In those recordings is playing both that brilliant, sturdy bass, kind of help anchor these songs when Juliana drifts off, and gets a little more melodic sometimes with the cymbals. And likewise, her keys, she's bouncing between bass and the keyboard, in live shows and in recordings, and she does that very seamlessly. She's strong on both instruments, and those all sort of weave together into these great songs. And then finally up front, we have the 3rd member of this band, Finola. She is a shredder on guitar. She's absolutely fantastic on guitar. Her voice is powerful beyond her age at just 14. You know, you hear these songs and you would not imagine that a 14-year-old is singing those lyrics, is singing with the kind of power that she does. She's mournful, you know, she's powerful, she's kind of mature in the way she sings, and she really is kind of the icing on the cake that is just kind of this jam-packed band of talent and kind of energy.
Absolutely.
So, you know, as we've indicated earlier, we're going to be pivoting in just a second to that interview that I had the chance to record with them a few weeks ago now. But first, I do want to talk about favorite songs. For people maybe looking at Circus Trees, they don't have the most massive catalog out there. You know, if you look on Bandcamp or Spotify, it's only 2 singles released. Again, I mentioned that EP coming soon. There's also some content out there on YouTube if you do your digging, but really looking at those 2 songs, Floating Still and Impermanence, what would you say is your sort of favorite and why?
I think I liked Floating Still. Again, it's a long song that manages to keep up the energy throughout its duration. I liked the depth and emotional lyrics. It was raw, dark, which are things that I like. The vocals that Finola did, I think, were very powerful, and they captured that mournful tone of the songs that you mentioned earlier, which I liked.
Absolutely. Yeah, Floating Still, you know, their longest song so far that they've released is a single, 8 minutes long, you know, clocking in maybe 8+ minutes.
Yeah.
That is a long song. But again, it really does keep you captivated. My favorite, you know, this is good. We'll touch on both their singles. My favorite would be their debut, Impermanence. There's just so much going on there with that song, meaning it really does sort of get to demonstrate the range that this band offers. That's another thing we're going to talk about in that interview, so stay tuned to that. But when you look at that song, we start with this very sparse, you know, kind of vocal track over this simple, you know, kind of clean finger-picked guitar riff for the first about minute and a half, and then it gently kind of weaves its way into this more kind of layered vocal and guitar setup. You know, again, still keeping with that kind of dichotomy of the vocals interplaying with the guitar. Through all of that, though, you have this kind of minimal percussion pattern that's slowly building as the song, you know, rises up in the background. And again, as I said earlier, it's up a lot on the cymbals, up on the ride cymbals, very lightly tapping on the crash cymbals. So, you know, as I said, a demonstration of using the cymbals in the song, and that kind of tinny sound that you're getting from the cymbals does a lot to kind of cut through the, you know, the kind of the deep, mournful voice. You know, the vocals and the low kind of ringing guitar sound. All that, though, is going to change about halfway through the song when everything briefly cuts to silence and then comes back with this, you know, stomping on all the pedals. You know, the guitar is growling, the cymbals are crashing. You know, it's an intense chorus of vocals. The vocals get kind of thicker and more dense. And from there, it's just all off to the races. You know, they kind of ebb and flow a little bit after that, you know, with the song really building over its course. Playing with volume very well. That's something I talk about almost all the time. I think a good band knows how to play with silence, knows how to play with volume. And I think this band just demonstrates that in Impermanence and Floating Still, both very good songs.
Absolutely.
So that is going to do it for our introductory discussion of Circus Trees. We're going to take the chance now to play that song Impermanence that I just discussed. But first, thank you, Clone, for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
So as I said, we're going to take the chance now to play Impermanence for you all. When we come out of that song, though, we will be one-on-one with Circus Trees themselves. This podcast is hardly over, so stay tuned.
I hope someday I will. Well, when we were younger, there's 5 kids, and all 5 of us decided to like pick up a bunch of instruments and just form a band, and like that was super cool. But our older brother, he decided to join another band, and that just became more of a project for him than our old band. So us 3 decided to go and just kind of make our own stuff, and that worked out well.
Was that the Knuckleheads band? Was the old one?
Yeah.
So how was with the once it shrunk down to just the 3 of you? How was that dynamic or that sound different?
I think definitely the period of time where we were still kind of figuring things out, before Circus Trees was Circus Trees, we were all sort of just stuck in that whole, what are we gonna do? Our older brother Owen was sort of the head of the band and would lead things, and so we felt kind of stuck as to where we were gonna go and our direction and our genre. And then I think once Finn, started writing and she'd come to us and show us those lyrics, we were like, ooh, okay, this is some heavy stuff. And then I think after a while her guitar melodies started putting drums, bass, piano to that. We really figured out our sound and our style.
Yeah, I think like for the actual sound, it was tough because our older brother was the guitar player and like I was the bass player. And so I had to like pick up guitar and start playing that and singing that and like being kind of the front of the band. And Edmee was actually playing piano for quite a while, just piano, no bass. And so we had to fix that. We tried a couple bass players, but didn't work out well. So we just decided that she was going to play both. So yeah.
It's a good vibe. You guys, alluded to your sound there. How would you sort of describe your sound? Either by, bands you admire or, just kind of, if asked to describe, what you guys sound like. How would you do that?
Well, we usually like to start off with just like saying we're depressing because we are, and we just got to throw that out there first. And then I feel like we have kind of a post-rock feel to us, like kind of shoegaze music that just like you want to cry to. Yeah, that's kind of like what we go for. But I mean, we don't know any bands that like really sound like us, but we just like to say like some of our favorite post-rock bands like Caspian and like Tides of Man. But also one of our favorite artists is Julian Baker. And she's a really big inspiration for us, even if she might not sound like us. She definitely, the style that she writes in, we really admire. So.
Absolutely. I'm curious, where'd the name come from?
There was a lot of brainstorming, and I think during the period of time where we were on the down low figuring things out, Finn was sort of recruited by this other sort of band. They compiled a bunch of younger children who were supposedly like the best at what they do, and she went off and played bass for them, and they were looking for a name, and then my dad and her sat down and they were like, yo, Circus Trees is really tight, that's a really cool name, and that band ended up rejecting that name, and Finn was like, yeet, like, we're not going to stay with that. And then I think we really gravitated towards Circus Trees. I know that me personally, I've had a big connection with just like trees and nature in general, and I think the sort of history and the feel behind the name is pretty cool, because they're actual like trees. They're all like up and twisted, and people twist them and all that kind of stuff, shape them. I think that was a good fit.
You kind of alluded to it there, but in the kind of broader creative process that is making music, what do you see as, kind of themes that you guys draw on or things from your life? You mentioned the connection to trees. Are there, for you or for the other, the others in this band, are there themes that you feel like you gravitate towards in the creative process?
A lyrical genius.
I don't think there's really anything that we really strongly connect to or anything in the band. We kind of just like write what we're feeling in the moment, or I don't know. There's nothing specific that we go after. We just write what we feel, and then it all just kind of comes together.
Yeah, as far as the writing process goes, there will be periods of time where we'll just bang out like 3 or 4 songs. I'm like, oh my god, like yes, this is our set, and then we'll go for a good amount of time. We're like, okay, this is our set. We're gonna perfect this over a couple months, few months, And during that time, that's when Finn will sort of just pull back, and she'll just start writing every once in a while, and then when she's done composing her set of lyrics and her guitar and all that kind of stuff, whether she records on GarageBand or anything, she'll come to us. She's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I think this is a good set of lyrics. Let me know. And then we'll sort of just all brainstorm, get together, set up the practice space, and then sort of just go at it. I know as far as lyrics, there's definitely some very heavy topics that Finn writes about, and I mean, I don't know where they come from. We come from just a suburban area over here, not too bad life, we got a really good family, tight-knit family, but I mean, the topics can be very heavy, like sort of abusive sort of relationships and sort of just like heartbreak, mental illness type of stuff, so.
Well, that's something that you guys, bring up in reading your guys' Facebook page and, the profile you put on a Bandcamp and Spotify and that kind of stuff. You kind of go back to that message of, we're people who write music that doesn't fit our age, our, location. What's that been like, bringing that kind of music out into the world? I guess, just sort of what's that been like?
I think usually when people have like never heard of us or like looked into who we are, and we like get to a show and start kind of like setting up and stuff, people usually go, oh, those are just kids. Oh, I get it. And then they kind of just like expect, like their expectations like are lower for us, and they think that like, we're not going to be as good. But then I think definitely when we start playing and as we're playing, people realize that like no matter how young we are, we still dedicate a big part of our lives to this music, and we work really hard on it. So
yeah, I'm bringing it obviously back to the start again. Once again, looking back at our foundation, it was, it was difficult. It was kind of tough getting started and putting ourselves out there. I know obviously I'm the oldest. I'm 17 now. I was, 16 earlier, and I mean, Edme being like 12. It was interesting, getting the reactions and sort of having people coming up to us after our set and being like, yo, I was like fully prepared to lie to y'all because I thought you guys were just kids. I didn't really expect anything other than just cute girl rock,
yeah, like being girls is definitely another big part besides age, because I don't know, I guess people just don't expect as much out of females, but it's like super awesome when people come up to us after a show and they're like, you're a good drummer, you're not a good young drummer, you're not a good young female drummer, you're a good drummer, and like that means a lot to us. Yeah,
absolutely, that's awesome. You talk about the shows a little bit there. I first saw you guys at the Raven a couple months back. But getting out there doing shows, what's that process been like, and are there any particular shows that have kind of stood out to you guys?
I
think our dad is a really big part of our bands. He runs our record label, 5x2 Records, and Circus Trees is part of that label. And he really, he's really helped build up our band, I guess. He books all of our shows, and not even just like shows for us, he just books shows in general to help out the Boston music scene, and it's really amazing. I think any shows that like really... Oh, we played with Au Revoir like a while ago, and that was just like mind-blowing. It was amazing. They played at Dunkfest in Vermont, I think last year, and it was just like so amazing to see them on stage there and then be able to play with them, and it was just like, it was amazing.
Yeah, I know for me, we've recently, Anyone Anyway, sort of released a new EP, and it's super, super cool. We got to play with them in Worcester, I think, and then a while ago we got to play with Flight of Fire, Carissa Johnson, Vanessa Silverman. They've been huge influences and huge supporters of us since the very beginning. So they're real fun.
That show, I remember the first time playing with Carissa and Vanessa, and they were super, super cool. And like, I remember playing, and like they kind of got up and started to walk away, and we were like, oh, okay.
But it's so bad.
After, we went up to our dad, and apparently they got up to go and talk to him about recording a new song and telling him how amazing we were doing. So that was good. Vanessa Silverman, she recorded our first single, Impermanence, with the help of Carissa Johnson, and so that was really cool.
You mentioned the single there, which is a good way to sort of lead into my next question. You guys, you have your two singles that you guys have released. They're also both two very long songs. You guys are not writing the typical 3 minute, 3.5 minute song. What about those songs stood out to you as ones that you really wanted to perfect and get out there? And why go for such the long format?
I think for us and the style and the genre that we sort of go for, we can't exactly hit the sound and the message we're trying to portray across to everybody in just like a typical 2.5, 3 minute sort of like pop style song. So I think the longer 6 minute, 8 minute songs sort of give us that ambience, that, the ups and the downs, and that gives it more emotion, and I think it stands out a lot better and shows people who we are rather than just the short stuff.
Yeah, usually when I write songs, it's like, I kind of just think of them as like stories almost that I'm telling. And I just feel like that I have to be able to express it all the way through. If I don't, then there's no point of the song. So I usually don't pay attention to time. But then, of course, like when we end up finishing the song and perfecting it and we go into recording, I realize how long I'm writing songs. But I don't know. Those two singles, I definitely remember the first time we were going into recording for our first single. It was a big decision to try and pick a song, because we definitely had an array of music, and just picking one was super tough. But I felt that Impermanence was a good song to be able to stand on its own without songs surrounding it. So I thought that would be a good one to start with. And then Floating Still, I don't know, I just always felt like that was like the song to be a single. So that's just, I think we all just kind of agreed that that was going to be our next song to record, so yeah.
Kind of going off that, you guys are also a band that from the start has had kind of a video component to it. The two music videos. I noticed you were up for, you were nominated for a Video of the Year award out in Worcester. You had the documentary come out. You know, why put that energy into video? Why is video something that's important to you guys?
With releasing these singles and the songs and these stories that we're trying to put out, I think we all collectively thought it was a smart idea to sort of put images and put videos and sort of put what's actually running through our heads when we're listening to that music. And I know our good friend Aaron from Pillbook, he helps us out a lot with that. We call him our aesthetic director.
Yeah.
He helps us look good. He helps us get, you know, good photos, good videos going. So I think it's an important thing for us to sort of
Yeah.
get that.
I think definitely when we realized that we were going to start recording and we started doing singles, we felt like the single wasn't enough. So we kind of made a plan that like we were going to release a single with a video and just like have it kind of be a package and like that be it to last us a couple months until we go back into recording. So yeah. Aaron's like been a huge part of all of that. He helps run our social media and yeah, he does all of our video work and everything, so it's really cool.
Awesome. And you kind of mentioned the kind of cycle that you guys are in there of, you know, kind of to hold you over for a few months, and you know, you guys were talking earlier about the whole creative process. What do you see as kind of the future for you guys?
So we just went into the studio
A few weeks ago, maybe.
the beginning of December to record our first EP. So we branched a little further than the singles now. We recorded 4 songs, which is like super cool. And yeah, I think in the future definitely releasing that hopefully by next year, and writing that out, and then hopefully we'll be continuing to write. And I don't know, we'll just like figure out and go from there. We don't plan that far ahead. Like
Yeah, I know I'm a senior in high school right now, so I know I'm a little bit closer to the future than these 2 kids. So I mean, definitely thinking about, you know, my path in life, and after graduating, Circus Trees has been a huge dividing path in sort of my direction and how I'm gonna sort of get around everything and what I'm gonna do. And I mean, I think, you know, maybe 10 years or something, it'd be great to, you know, get some tours in there and get all across the states. You know, that'd be wicked sick. I know she's still in like middle school, but I mean,
7th grade.
you know, as long as we keep playing, I know
Yeah.
I'm gonna be happy.
definitely want to go on tour. Tour is like, we love just exploring and going
Gas
anywhere.
stations.
Yeah.
We love gas stations.
After every show, we just go to a gas station.
It'll be like 1 in the morning, and we'll all pile out of our minivan with like the gear in the back. There's
Waddle.
like 8 of us bolting into a gas station.
Yeah.
It's like a ritual. I love it.
Yeah.
That's an album cover right there.
Yeah. You know what? That's what we're gonna call the EP.
Yes.
Gas station.
There you go. That's all I got. Anything else you guys want to add?
Check us out on Instagram,
Facebook, shouting us out.
Circus Trees. Check out our record label.
Yeah.
I've got 2 records. Look up our singles, Floating Still and Impermanence. They're on like Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff.
Look out for our EP.
That will do it for our interview with Circus Trees, but we are not quite done with this podcast yet. As we changed the format of our podcast last episode with the introduction of band interviews, we're changing things again this time around, albeit on a slightly smaller scale. We're happy to introduce a new segment where we can check back in with bands that have previously appeared on the podcast to keep you up to date on what they've been doing. We're checking in with the 3 Pounds of Pure Culture family right now. First up, we go back to our first episode with the band Color Killer. They're a hard-rocking punk quartet of middle school boys with tic-tac colored hair who dropped their debut album Generation Z late this summer, just before becoming the youngest act to ever play a Vans Warped Tour set. After touring heavily through the fall, they're back now with new content. It's called Nothing for Christmas, and it's a single and a music video they released on December 13th. You can check that out on their YouTube page, which is simply called Color Killer. Also out with new music, we want to check in with another punk favorite of ours from a more recent episode. It's Planet Mercury and their single Burn. That dropped early in December, I believe, that on all their platforms, and has already scooped up more than 7,000 streams on Spotify. That's more than all streams of their previous EP combined, according to their Instagram page. They will also be releasing an EP coming soon, full of brand new music. Definitely do go check that out. As Burn in particular is an absolute hard-rocking song. We've talked about a lot of bands on this podcast, and they've all been doing great work in their scene, so we will be checking back in with many more of them on future episodes, but for now, this will be the end of this episode of 3 Pounds of Pure Culture. Big thanks to Circus Trees for letting me into their rehearsal space to do our interview for this episode, and also for allowing us to use their music on this show. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and can find their music on Spotify, YouTube, or Bandcamp under the name Circus Trees. Again, that will be it for this episode of 3 Pounds of Pure Culture. For all of us at HUD-TV, I'm Dakota Antelman. Thanks.